Clara's knees hit the frozen ground. Her carpet bag fell open, scattering everything she owned across the snow. A hairbrush, 3 coins, her mother's poetry book. The stagecoach had already disappeared into the white nothing behind her. She was 2 hours from Bitter Creek. 2 hours from the man who'd paid her passage. 2 hours from the children who didn't know she existed. And the blizzard was coming. If you want to see how one woman's worst day became her greatest blessing, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far Clara's story travels. Montana Territory, December 1883. Clara Ruth Bennett had stopped believing in miracles 3 years ago. Right about the time her fiancé ran off with another woman. Right about the time her father's debts swallowed everything she'd ever known. Now she stood on the frozen road outside Bitter Creek, her threadbare coat doing nothing against the wind, and she wondered if God was laughing at her. The stagecoach driver had dropped her here. Said the road to Thornton Ranch was too dangerous in this weather. Said she could wait in town for the storm to pass. Clara had 17 cents to her name. Waiting wasn't an option. She gathered her scattered belongings with numb fingers. The poetry book went back in the bag first, her mother's book, the only thing she hadn't sold. Then the hairbrush. Then the coins, though they hardly mattered now. 2 hours. She could walk 2 hours. Clara started moving. The snow fell harder with every step. Wind cut through her dress like it wasn't there. She'd patched this dress 6 times, used fabric from her old curtains. Her tablecloth, even her wedding dress, the one she'd never worn. None of those patches kept out Montana winter. 1 foot, then the other. Keep moving. Her mind drifted to the advertisement she'd answered 3 months ago. Widower with 2 children seeks practical woman for frontier life. Ranch work. Child minding. No romance promised or expected. Passage paid. No romance promised. Clara had laughed when she'd read that. Laughed until she'd cried. Because that was exactly what she wanted. A purpose. A place. A roof that didn't leak when it rained. She didn't need love. Love had made her foolish once. Never again. The road curved around a hill, and suddenly the wind hit her full force. Clara stumbled. Her ankle twisted on hidden ice. She went down hard, the impact knocking the breath from her chest. For a long moment she lay there, snow soaking through her dress, cold seeping into her bones. Get up! She tried. Her arm shook. Get up, Clara. Her mother's voice. Strange how she still heard it 8 years after the consumption had taken her. You didn't survive St. Louis to die in a snowbank. Get up. Clara pushed herself to her knees, then to her feet. She grabbed her carpet bag and kept walking. The ranch appeared like a ghost through the white, a cabin, a barn smoke rising from a chimney. Clara's heart lurched. She was alive. She'd made it. She stumbled toward the door, raised her hand to knock. It swung open before she could. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair going gray at the temples. He looked at her like she was a coyote that had wandered onto his porch. Mr. Thornton, her voice came out cracked. I'm Clara Bennett. You're late. The words hit like a slap. Clara swayed on her feet. The stage was delayed. The snow. I sent a wagon to town 3 hours ago. You weren't there. The driver dropped me outside town. Said the road was. You walked in this. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth exactly. More like the way a man looked at a horse that had done something unexpected. I had no money for lodging, Clara said. No choice but to walk. Caleb Thornton stared at her soaked dress, her blue lips, her shaking hands. Then he stepped back. Get inside before you freeze to death. I ain't explaining to my children why they're new. Whatever you are, died on the porch. Clara moved past him into the warmth. The heat from the fire hit her like a physical force. Her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her. Easy. Caleb's voice was gruff. Sit. By the fire. He guided her to a chair. Clara sank into it, her body shaking violently now that the cold was releasing its grip. She heard him moving around, then a blanket settled over her shoulders. Heavy. Wool. It smelled like cedar and horses. "Thank you," she whispered. No response. When she looked up, he was watching her from across the room, arms crossed, face unreadable. "You ain't what I expected," he said finally. Clara almost laughed. "I imagine not." She knew what she looked like. A woman in rags, patches on patches, shoes held together with prayer and string. She'd written to him about her circumstances, her father's debts, her lost position, her poverty. But words on paper were different than seeing the truth standing in your cabin. "I can work," she said. "I'm stronger than I look. I can cook, clean, mend. I can read and write and do figures. I taught school for 3 years in Missouri." "School teaching ain't ranch work." "No, but I learn quick." Caleb's jaw tightened. Whatever he was about to say was interrupted by footsteps pounding from the hallway. Pa, is she here? Is the lady?" A girl burst into the room. Small, dark curls wild around her face. She skidded to a stop when she saw Clara, her brown eyes going wide. "You came," the child breathed. "You really came." Clara's heart clenched. "I did. I'm Rosie." The girl crept closer, studying Clara like she was something miraculous. "You're pretty. Even all wet and cold, you're pretty. Pa said you were coming to help take care of us. Are you going to stay forever?" "Rosie." Caleb's voice was sharp. "Give the woman space." But Rosie had already crossed the room. She reached out and touched Clara's hand, then jerked back. "You're like ice, Pa, she's freezing." "I know, Rosie. We gotta warm her up. I'll get more blankets, and hot coffee. Ma always said hot coffee fixes everything." She ran off before anyone could stop her. Clara watched her go, something aching in her chest. Such trust, such immediate warmth. When had anyone last looked at her like she mattered? "She's been asking about you for weeks." Caleb's voice was flat. "Don't make her promises you can't keep." Clara met his eyes. "I don't make promises, Mr. Thornton. I've learned that lesson." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. The look of someone who understood about broken promises. Before he could respond, another figure appeared in the doorway. A boy, 9 or 10. Brown hair, serious eyes, posture too stiff for a child. He looked at Clara the way his father had, like she was a threat to be assessed. "Emmett." Caleb said, "This is Miss Bennett." The boy said nothing. "Emmett." "I heard you, Pa." The boy's voice was cold. "This is the beggar woman you sent for." "Emmett James Thornton." "It's true, ain't it?" Emmett stepped closer, chin raised. "Look at her. She's wearing rags. You could have married Miss Prudence. She's got nice dresses and her ma owns the general store. But you sent for this." Clara stood. The blanket fell from her shoulders. She walked toward the boy until she was close enough to see the tears he was trying to hide beneath his anger. "You're right," she said quietly. "I'm poor. I've got nothing but what's in that bag. But I walked 2 hours through a blizzard to get here because I gave my word, and my word is the only thing I have left that's worth anything." Emmett's lip trembled. "I don't want you here." "I know. You're not my ma." "I know that too. So why'd you come?" Clara knelt so she was eye level with him. This close, she could see the grief carved into his young face, the desperate fear underneath the anger. "I came because I needed somewhere to belong," she said. "Same as everyone. I'm not trying to replace your ma. No one could do that. I'm just trying to find my place in this world. Same as you." Emmett stared at her. His jaw worked. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Clara stayed kneeling, suddenly exhausted. The cold, the walk, the confrontation, it all crashed into her at once. Rosie's voice came from the hallway. "Don't mind Emmett. He's mean to everyone since Mama went to heaven. Pa says he's got anger in his heart that needs somewhere to go. Clara turned. The little girl stood there holding a coffee cup in both hands, careful not to spill. "I brought you coffee. It's hot. Be careful." Clara took it. The warmth seeped into her frozen fingers. "Thank you, Rosie." "You're welcome." The girl smiled, bright, hopeful, heartbreaking. "I'm glad you're here. I prayed and prayed for God to send someone, and he sent you. Even if Emmett don't like it, even if Pa looks grumpy." Clara glanced at Caleb. He stood by the window, back to the room, tension in every line of his body. "Your pa's not grumpy," Clara said. "He's just worried about his children." "He's always worried." Rosie climbed onto the chair next to Clara. "Ever since Mama died. He works and don't sleep. Sometimes I hear him walking around at night. Emmett says Pa's got ghosts, but not the scary kind. The sad kind." "Rosie." Caleb still didn't turn. "That's enough." "But Pa..." "I said enough." The little girl's face fell. Clara reached out, almost touched her hair, then stopped herself. Not her place. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "It's all right," Clara said softly. "Your pa's tired. We should let him rest." "He don't rest. That's the problem." Clara set down her coffee. "Then maybe we should make supper. Give him one less thing to worry about." Rosie brightened. "You know how to cook." "I do. Better than Pa. He burns everything." A sound came from Caleb, might have been a laugh, might have been a grunt. Clara couldn't tell. "We'll see," she said. She stood her legs still, unsteady, and followed Rosie toward the kitchen. At the doorway she paused and looked back at Caleb. "Mr. Thornton." He turned. His face was shadowed, unreadable. "I know this isn't what you wanted," Clara said. "I know I'm not what you expected, but I meant what I said. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired. I'll earn my place here. And if you can't, then I'll leave. No argument, no begging." Their eyes held. Clara saw the doubt in his, saw the fear, saw underneath it all a grief so deep it had become part of him. "The stage comes through twice a month," Caleb said. "Next one's in 2 weeks. You got until then to prove yourself." Clara nodded. 2 weeks, I understand." She turned and walked into the kitchen. Behind her, she heard Caleb's boots move to the door, heard it open and close. Gone to the barn probably. Running from the stranger who'd invaded his home. That was fine. Clara had spent 3 years running from her own ghosts. She understood the impulse. In the kitchen, Rosie was already pulling ingredients from the pantry, chattering about her favorite foods, and how Mama used to make biscuits so fluffy they were like clouds. Clara rolled up her sleeves. 2 weeks wasn't long, but it was enough. It had to be enough. She started cooking. That night, Clara lay in the small room they'd given her, more a storage space than a bedroom, but clean and dry, and listened to the wind howl outside. The blizzard had hit full force. Snow piled against the windows. The cabin creaked and groaned like a living thing. In the room next door, she heard Rosie's voice, then Caleb's low murmur. Bedtime prayers, maybe. Or just the sound of a father saying goodnight. Something ached in Clara's chest. Loneliness. She'd gotten used to it over the years, but tonight it felt sharper. Here was a family broken but real, and she was on the outside looking in. You're always on the outside, she thought. That's where you belong. Footsteps in the hallway. A pause outside her door. Clara held her breath. Knock. Soft. Almost hesitant. "Miss Bennett," Caleb's voice. Clara sat up. "Yes." "Rosie wants to say goodnight." Clara crossed to the door and opened it. Rosie stood there in her nightgown, clutching a worn fabric doll. Behind her, Caleb waited, face in shadow. "Night, Miss Clara." Rosie threw her arms around Clara's waist, hugging tight. "Thank you for supper. The stew was really good. Even Emmett ate 2 bowls, and he didn't say nothing mean about it." Clara's throat tightened. She hugged the child back. "Good night, Rosie." "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I'll be here." "Promise?" Clara hesitated. She'd told Caleb she didn't make promises. But this small, hopeful face, how could she refuse, "I promise"? Rosie smiled and ran back to her father. Caleb nodded once at Clara. Acknowledgement, nothing more, then guided his daughter down the hall. Clara closed her door and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking. What had she done? Made a promise to a child she might not be able to keep. Let herself care even a little when caring only led to loss. Fool, she told herself. You're a fool. But when she finally slept, she dreamed of warmth, of a fire crackling, of a small hand in hers, of belonging. Morning came gray and cold. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind drifts taller than a man. Clara dressed quickly in the frigid room and made her way to the kitchen. Caleb was already there. Coffee on the stove, lines under his eyes that said he hadn't slept. "Storm's bad," he said without greeting. "We're snowed in. Might be a week before anyone can get through." Clara nodded. "What needs doing?" He looked at her, really looked for the first time since she'd arrived. "You're serious. I told you I'd work." Something shifted in his expression, still not warmth, but maybe respect. "Animals need tending. Snow needs clearing from the barn door. I'll handle the heavy work. You mind the children and the house." "I can help with the animals." "In that dress." Clara looked down at her patched, threadbare dress, the only one she owned. "I manage." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to a trunk in the corner and pulled out a bundle of fabric. "These were my wife's. She'd want them used." He held out the bundle, a wool dress, a heavy shawl. Both worn, but whole, without patches, without holes. Clara's pride flared. Charity. She hated charity. But she looked at the dress in his hands, and she thought about the cold, and she thought about Rosie asking her to promise. She took the bundle. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me. Martha would have wanted it." He turned and walked out before Clara could respond. She held the dress to her chest. It smelled faintly of cedar and something else. Roses, maybe. A woman's scent, long faded, but still present. "I'm sorry," she thought to the ghost of Martha Thornton. "I'm not trying to take your place. I'm just trying to survive." The dress fit well enough. Clara wrapped the shawl around her shoulders and went to wake the children. Rosie came eagerly excited about the snow, chattering about building a snow fort. Emmett followed in sullen silence, refusing to meet Clara's eyes. Breakfast was quiet. Caleb ate standing, then headed out to the barn. Clara cleaned up while Rosie played with her doll and Emmett stared out the window. "Can I help with something?" Clara asked him. No answer. "Emmett." "I heard you." Clara sat down across from him. "You don't have to like me, but we're stuck here together for at least a week. Maybe we could try to be civil." Emmett's jaw tightened. "Civil?" "Yes." "You want me to be civil to the woman who's trying to replace my mother?" "I'm not." "You're wearing her dress." Clara stopped, looked down at the blue wool. Martha's dress. "Your father gave it to me. I didn't know." "Now you know." Emmett stood. That was her favorite. The one she wore to church every Sunday. The one she wore when... His voice cracked. He turned away fast, but not fast enough. Clara saw the tears. "Emmett. Leave me alone." He ran. The front door slammed. Clara heard his footsteps crunching in the snow, heading toward the barn. Rosie looked up from her doll. "Emmett's crying again." "I know, sweetie. He misses Mama. I miss her too, but I was little when she went to heaven. I don't remember her good like Emmett does." Rosie hugged her doll tighter. "Pa gave you Mama's dress 'cause he wants you to stay. That's good, ain't it?" Clara didn't know how to answer. "He never gives away Mama's things." Rosie continued. "He keeps them all in that trunk. Sometimes at night he opens it and just looks at them. But he gave you the dress. That means something, don't it? Clara thought about Caleb's face when he'd handed her the bundle. The careful blankness. The way he'd walked out before she could respond. I don't know what it means, she said honestly. But I'll try to deserve it. Rosie smiled. You will. I know you will. Such faith. Clara didn't know what she'd done to earn it. Didn't know if she ever could. But she'd try. God help her, she'd try. The first week passed in a blur of work. Clara cooked, cleaned, mended, organized. She helped Caleb clear snow from the paths. She fed the chickens, collected eggs, learned the names of the horses. Her hands cracked and bled from the cold. She didn't complain. Rosie followed her everywhere, a small shadow full of questions. Why do you stir the stew that way? Where did you learn to sew so neat? Did you have a mama too? Was she nice? Do you miss her? Clara answered when she could, deflected when she couldn't. Let the child's chatter fill the silence that Emmett and Caleb left behind, because neither of them talked to her more than necessary. Caleb gave orders short and clipped. Emmett gave nothing at all. At meals, Clara felt their eyes on her, measuring, judging, waiting for her to fail. She didn't fail. On the fourth day, Emmett came in from the barn with blood on his hands. He'd cut himself on a nail. Not deep, but enough to need tending. Caleb was out checking on the cattle. There was only Clara. Let me see, she said. Emmett pulled away. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I said I'm fine. Clara stepped closer. Emmett James Thornton, sit down and let me look at that hand. The use of his full name startled him. He sat. Clara examined the cut, shallow, clean, nothing serious. She cleaned it with warm water, applied salve from the kitchen cabinet, wrapped it with a strip of clean cloth. There, she said. Keep it dry. I'll check it tomorrow. Emmett looked at his bandaged hand, then at her. His expression was strange, confused almost. You sounded like her, he said quietly. Who? Ma. When she used to fuss over us. His voice roughened. She'd use our full names when we weren't listening, just like that. Clara didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, she managed. I didn't mean... It's fine. Emmett stood. Thanks, for the bandage. He walked away. Not running this time, not angry. Progress, maybe. Small, fragile, but progress. That night, for the first time, Emmett said goodnight to her before bed. Day 6. Clara was kneading bread when she heard the shot. She dropped everything and ran to the window. In the distance near the tree line, she saw Caleb, rifle raised, a dark shape moving through the snow. Wolves. Clara's heart stopped. She'd heard about the wolves from Rosie, how they came down from the mountains in hard winters, desperate and bold. How they'd killed 3 of the neighbors' cattle last year. How Martha had died in winter. How the wolves had circled the house that night, howling. Rosie appeared beside her, face pale. Pa. He's fine. Stay here. Clara grabbed the rifle from above the fireplace. She didn't know if she could shoot it, hadn't fired a gun in years, but she couldn't just stand here. Miss Clara, don't... Stay inside, Rosie. Watch your brother. She was out the door before the girl could argue. The cold hit her like a wall. Snow up to her knees. She pushed through it, rifle clutched in frozen hands, eyes on Caleb's distant figure. Another shot. A yelp. The dark shape fell. But there were more. 3, 4, circling. And Caleb wasn't moving right. Something was wrong. Clara ran. Her lungs burned. Her legs ached. The dress, Martha's dress, dragged in the snow. She kept running. She reached him just as he went down on one knee. His face was gray. His left leg dark with blood. Thornton. Get back to the house. His voice was strained. There's more coming. I'm not leaving you. Woman. I said no. She raised the rifle, aimed at the nearest wolf. prayed her hands would stop shaking, fired. The kick knocked her back a step, but the wolf yelped and ran. The others followed, disappearing into the trees. Clara dropped to her knees beside Caleb. "Where are you hurt?" "Leg. Damn thing came out of nowhere." She looked. His trousers were torn, blood soaked through, wolf bite deep. "Can you walk?" "Have to." She got under his arm, took his weight. Together, step by agonizing step, they made it back to the cabin. Emmett met them at the door, face white as the snow. "Pa." "I'm all right, son. Help me inside." They got Caleb to a chair by the fire. Clara sent Rosie for hot water and clean cloth, sent Emmett for the whiskey she'd seen in the pantry. Then she knelt and examined the wound. Bad. Not fatal, but bad. Deep punctures, torn flesh, bleeding heavy. "This needs stitching," she said. Caleb's jaw tightened. "You know how I learned, when there was no money for doctors." Their eyes met. She saw pain there, fear. And something else, surprise maybe, that she was still here, that she hadn't run. "Do it," he said. Clara threaded the needle, cleaned the wound, poured whiskey over it while Caleb cursed through gritted teeth. Then she stitched, neat, careful, the way her grandmother had taught her, the way she'd stitched her own cuts when there was no one else. Emmett and Rosie watched from the doorway, silent and scared. "Almost done," Clara said softly. "You're doing well." Caleb laughed, harsh, pained. "You're stitching me up and telling me I'm doing well. Someone has to." She tied off the last stitch, bandaged the leg. Only then did she let herself breathe. "There. Rest it for a few days. I'll change the bandage tomorrow." Caleb looked at his leg, then at her. "You ran toward the wolves. You were hurt. Most people would have run the other way." Clara sat back on her heels. "I'm not most people." Something shifted in his face. The careful blankness cracked just for a moment. Underneath was something raw, something that looked almost like hope. "No," he said quietly. "I'm starting to see that." They stared at each other. The fire crackled. The children waited. Clara stood. "I'll make supper. You need to eat. Build your strength." She walked to the kitchen on legs that trembled. Behind her she heard Rosie's voice. "See, Pa, I told you God sent her." Caleb didn't answer. But when Clara glanced back, he was watching her, and for the first time since she'd arrived, he didn't look away. The fever came that night. Clara woke to Rosie shaking her arm, the child's face streaked with tears. "Miss Clara, Pa's burning up. He won't wake proper." Clara threw off her blanket and ran. Caleb lay in his bed, skin-flushed red sweat soaking through his shirt. His breathing came shallow and fast. When Clara touched his forehead, she jerked her hand back from the heat. "How long has he been like this?" "I don't know. I heard him making noises, talking to Mama." Clara's stomach dropped, talking to his dead wife. That meant delirium. That meant the infection had already taken hold. "Emmett." She kept her voice steady, though her heart raced. "Emmett, wake up." The boy appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. When he saw his father, all the color drained from his face. "Papa." "Don't crowd him." Clara was already moving, grabbing cloths, calling for water. "Emmett, I need snow. Clean snow as much as you can carry. We have to bring his fever down." "Is he gonna die?" The question hung in the air. Rosie started sobbing. Emmett stood frozen, a 9-year-old boy staring at his worst nightmare. Clara grabbed his shoulders. "Look at me. Your father is strong, but I need your help. Can you do that? Can you help me save him?" Something hardened in Emmett's eyes, fear becoming determination. "Tell me what to do." "Snow, now, go." He ran. Clara turned to Rosie. "Sweetheart, I need you to be brave. Can you keep the fire going? Add wood when it gets low." Rosie nodded, still crying, but moving toward the fireplace. Clara knelt beside Caleb. His eyes were open, but unseeing, fixed on something beyond the ceiling. "Martha." His voice was cracked, desperate. "Martha, don't leave. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Shh." Clara pressed a cool cloth to his forehead. "You're all right. You're safe. I should have gotten the doctor sooner. Should have known something was wrong. Martha. Please." "Caleb?" She used his first name without thinking. "Caleb, stay with me." His eyes focused just for a moment. "Clara." "I'm here." "The children." "They're fine. They're right here." His hand found hers, grip weak but desperate. "Don't let them see me die. Not like they saw her. Promise me." Clara's throat closed. "You're not dying." "Promise me." "I promise you're not dying, you stubborn man. I didn't walk through a blizzard and fight off wolves just to let you give up now." A ghost of a smile crossed his cracked lips. "Bossy." "Someone has to be." Emmett burst back in with an armful of snow. Clara packed it into cloths, pressed them against Caleb's neck, his wrists anywhere she could find a pulse point. His body shook from the cold, but the heat radiating off him barely diminished. The night became a war. Every hour Clara changed the compresses. Every hour she forced sips of water between Caleb's lips. Every hour she checked his wound, watching for the red streaks that would mean blood poisoning, watching for the signs that would mean she'd already lost. Emmett refused to leave. He sat in the corner, eyes fixed on his father, fists clenched against his knees. "You should sleep," Clara told him near dawn. "No." "Emmett." "I said no." His voice cracked. "When Ma was sick, Pa made me go to bed. Said she'd be fine in the morning. She wasn't. I never got to say goodbye." Clara's heart broke for him. "Then stay," she said softly. "But eat something. Your father will need you strong when he wakes." "If he wakes." "When?" Emmett looked at her. In the firelight, he seemed younger than his years. Just a scared boy who'd already lost too much. "You really think he'll make it?" Clara thought about the fever that wouldn't break, the wound that oozed despite her stitches, the way Caleb kept calling for his dead wife. "I think your father's the most stubborn man I've ever met," she said. "And I think he loves you and your sister more than anything in this world. He won't leave you, not without a fight." Emmett was quiet for a long moment. "Ma said something like that, before she died." His voice dropped to a whisper. "She said she'd never leave us, but she did." She didn't choose to leave Emmett. Sometimes people want to stay more than anything, but their bodies won't let them. "Is that what's happening to Pa?" Clara looked at Caleb, still burning, still fighting. "No," she said. "Your Pa's body is fighting hard. We just have to help it win." Rosie had fallen asleep by the fire, curled up with her doll. Clara covered her with a blanket, then returned to Caleb's bedside. The fever raged on. Sometime before dawn, Caleb seized her hand again. "Don't go." "I'm not going anywhere. Everyone goes. Martha went. My parents went. Everyone. I'm here, Caleb. I'm right here." "Bye." His eyes found hers, fever bright but present. "Why?" "Why what? Why do you stay? You could leave. Find somewhere easier. Someone who isn't broken." Clara thought about her answer, about all the reasons she should leave, all the reasons she should protect her heart. "Because your daughter made me promise," she said finally. "And I don't break my promises. Not anymore." Caleb's grip tightened. "Clara, rest now. Save your strength." "Clara, I need to tell you." "Tell me when the fever breaks. Give yourself something to fight for." He closed his eyes. His breathing evened just slightly. Clara kept hold of his hand and didn't let go. The fever broke at sunrise. Clara felt it happen the moment his skin cooled from burning to merely warm. His breathing deepened. The lines of pain in his face smoothed. She slumped forward, exhausted beyond words, and let herself cry. Emmett found her like that, tears streaming down her face, still holding his father's hand. "Miss Clara, is he?" "He's sleeping, really sleeping." The fever broke. Emmett's knees gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, and for the first time since Clara had met him, he let himself sob. She went to him, wrapped her arms around his shaking shoulders, let him cry against her chest, like the child he still was underneath all that anger. "It's all right," she murmured. "He's going to be all right. I thought. I know, but he's still here. He's still here." Rosie woke to find them like that, Emmett crying in Clara's arms, Caleb sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. "Is Pa okay?" "Pa's going to be fine, sweetheart." Rosie's face crumpled with relief. She ran over and threw herself into the embrace, and Clara held them both, these children who weren't hers, this family she'd stumbled into. Something had changed in the long hours of the night. Something had shifted. She wasn't an outsider anymore. Caleb woke that afternoon. Clara was dozing in the chair beside his bed when she felt him stir. She opened her eyes to find him watching her. "You look terrible," he said. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. Clara laughed, surprising herself. "You should see yourself." "How long?" 2 days. The fever was bad. He processed this. "The children?" "Fine. Worried sick, but fine. Emmett hasn't left that corner except to eat." Caleb turned his head. Emmett was there asleep, sitting up, exhaustion finally claiming him. "He stayed. All night. Both nights." Clara paused. "He was afraid to leave. After what happened with his mother." Pain crossed Caleb's face. "I made him go to bed. The night Martha died. I thought I was protecting him." "You were trying to." "I was wrong." His voice cracked. "He never forgave me for it." "He's 9, Caleb. He doesn't know how to forgive yet. He barely knows how to feel." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You called me Caleb." Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton, I meant, don't." His hand found hers on the blanket. "Don't apologize. I like how it sounds. When you say it." Their eyes met. Something passed between them, fragile and new. "You saved my life," Caleb said quietly. "I did what anyone would do." "No, you did what you would do. There's a difference." He squeezed her hand, weak but intentional. "Thank you, Clara." She didn't trust her voice. She just nodded and let him hold her hand until he fell back asleep. The days that followed were tender ones. Caleb healed slowly, forced to rest while his leg mended. He hated it, this inactivity, this dependence. But Clara was ruthless. "You're not getting out of that bed until I say so." "I've got work to do. The cattle can wait. Emmett and I handled the morning feed." Caleb stared at her. "Emmett helped you. He's been helping every day, without complaint." Something shifted in Caleb's expression. Hope, maybe, or wonder. "He doesn't help anyone, not since Martha died." "He helped me." Clara straightened his blankets, avoiding his eyes. "He's a good boy, Caleb. He's just hurting." "I know he's hurting. I just don't know how to reach him." "Maybe stop trying so hard. Let him come to you." Caleb was quiet. Then, "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just remember being young and angry and thinking no one understood." "What changed?" Clara paused in her work. No one had ever asked her that. "I ran out of anger," she said finally. "I realized it wasn't protecting me. It was just keeping me alone." Caleb studied her face. "You're not alone now." "No?" Clara said softly. I suppose I'm not. That evening, something remarkable happened. Clara was reading to Rosie by the fire a story from her mother's poetry book when Emmett appeared in the doorway. What are you reading? Clara looked up surprised. Emmett hadn't voluntarily spoken to her in days. Poetry. My mother's book. Emmett hesitated. Then he crossed the room and sat on the floor near Rosie. Can I listen? Clara's heart swelled. Of course. She read on, her voice filling the quiet cabin. Rosie leaned against her side. Emmett sat with his knees drawn up, pretending not to be interested, but Clara saw how his eyes followed the words. When she finished, Rosie was half asleep. That was pretty, the little girl murmured. Read another. Tomorrow, sweetheart. Time for bed. Clara carried Rosie to her room, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. When she returned, Emmett was still there staring at the fire. You read good, he said without looking at her. Thank you. Ma used to read to us, before she got sick. Clara sat down carefully, not too close. What did she read? Bible stories mostly, and this one book about a knight and a dragon. His voice roughened. I don't remember how it ended. She never got to finish it. Clara's throat tightened. Maybe we could find another copy. When the road's clear. Emmett finally looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed. Why are you being nice to me? I've been nothing but mean to you since you got here. Because being mean is easier than being scared. I understand that. I ain't scared. Emmett. He looked away. His jaw worked. Fine. Maybe I'm scared. A little. Pa almost died, just like Ma. And you're wearing her dress and sleeping in her house and taking care of us like she used to. And I don't know how to feel about that. Clara chose her words carefully. You're allowed to feel however you feel. Angry, scared, confused. All of it. But I want you to know something. What? I'm not trying to be your mother. No one could replace her. I'm just trying to be here in whatever way helps. If that means staying out of your way, I'll do that. If that means reading poetry by the fire, I'll do that too. You get to decide. Emmett was quiet for a long time. The fire crackled between them. The stew you made yesterday, he said finally. It was good, better than Pa's. Clara smiled. Everything's better than your Pa's cooking. A sound escaped Emmett, startled and rusty. It took Clara a moment to realize it was a laugh. Don't tell him I said that, Emmett added quickly. Our secret. They sat in comfortable silence. Something had cracked open between them, small but significant. Miss Clara. Yes. I'm sorry for calling you a beggar woman. That first day. Clara's eyes stung. Thank you, Emmett. That means a lot. He nodded stiffly, the way boys do when emotions get too big. Then he stood and headed for his room. At the doorway he paused. Good night, Miss Clara. Good night, Emmett. He was gone before she could say more. Clara sat alone by the dying fire, and for the first time since arriving at Thornton Ranch, she let herself believe she might actually belong. A week later, the roads finally cleared. Clara was hanging laundry when she heard the wagon approaching. She shaded her eyes against the winter sun and felt her stomach drop. A fine carriage drawn by matching bay horses. Far too elegant for Bitter Creek. Who's that? Emmett appeared beside her, suspicion in his voice. Clara didn't answer. She was watching the carriage door open, watching the woman who emerged. Expensive dress. Fur-trimmed coat. Hair perfectly arranged beneath a fashionable hat. Behind her came another woman, younger but equally well-dressed. The older woman's eyes swept over the ranch, over the cabin, over Clara in her work-worn dress. You must be the mail-order bride. Her voice dripped with false sweetness. I'm Dorothea Harding. This is my daughter Prudence. We've come to see how dear Caleb is recovering. Clara felt Emmett stiffen beside her. "Mrs. Harding." She kept her voice neutral. "Mr. Thornton is resting. Perhaps you could come back another—" "Nonsense. We've brought supplies. Medicine. Proper food." Mrs. Harding swept past Clara without waiting for permission. "Prudence, bring the basket." The younger woman followed, casting Clara a look that was half pity, half contempt. Clara's hands clenched at her sides. "I don't like them," Emmett muttered. "Hush." "Pa don't like them either. Mrs. Harding's been trying to marry Miss Prudence to him for years. Ma said she was a vulture in fancy feathers." Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was. Come on. We better make sure they don't bother Pa too much." They found Mrs. Harding already in Caleb's room, arranging herself in the chair Clara had occupied for days. Prudence stood by the window, her perfect profile turned toward the bed. Caleb looked trapped. "Dorothea, this isn't necessary." "Of course it is. When we heard about your accident, we simply had to come. That dreadful wolf attack. You could have died." Mrs. Harding shot a pointed look at Clara. "All alone out here with only help." The word dripped with implication. "Miss Bennett saved my life," Caleb said flatly. "She stitched the wound herself, nursed me through the fever." "How resourceful." Mrs. Harding's smile didn't reach her eyes. "But surely you need proper care now. Someone with breeding, with experience." "I have proper care." Caleb. "Dear, I understand you're grateful to this woman for her assistance. But we must think practically. Your children need stability, a proper mother figure." Her eyes slid to Prudence. "Someone from a good family, not a stranger in rags who answered an advertisement." Clara felt the words like blows. She kept her face still. "I think you should go." Caleb's voice was quiet, but dangerous. Mrs. Harding blinked. "I beg your pardon." "I said go. Miss Bennett is a guest in my home. I won't have her insulted under my roof." "Insulted, You merely implied she's beneath my notice. She's not. She's worth more than—" He stopped himself, but the damage was done. Everyone in the room heard what he'd almost said. "Worth more than you. Worth more than your daughter with her fine dresses and empty conversation." Mrs. Harding's face hardened. "I see. Well, I suppose some men don't know quality when it's offered to them." "I know quality just fine. I'm looking at it." His eyes were on Clara. The moment stretched. Clara couldn't breathe. Mrs. Harding gathered her dignity like armor. "Come, Prudence. We're clearly not wanted here." They swept out without another word. Clara heard the carriage leave, heard the horse's hooves fading into the distance. Only then did she let herself exhale. "Clara!" Caleb's voice was rough. She turned. He was trying to sit up, wincing with the effort. "Stay down. You'll tear your stitches." "I don't care about my stitches. Come here." She approached the bed slowly, her heart hammered against her ribs. "What you said to them?" "I meant every word." His eyes held hers. "I've been lying in this bed for a week, thinking. About Martha. About the children. About you." "Caleb, let me finish." He reached for her hand. "When you walked through that door covered in snow wearing rags, I thought God was playing a cruel joke on me. Another mouth to feed. Another burden." Clara flinched. "But I was wrong." His grip tightened. "You're not a burden. You're a blessing. You saved my life. You saved my children. You've been more of a mother to them in 3 weeks than—" His voice broke. "Than I've been a father in 3 years. That's not true." "It is true. I've been so lost in my grief I forgot how to live. How to love. You reminded me." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. She couldn't stop them. "I know this isn't what you signed up for," Caleb continued. "I know I promised no romance. But Clara, I can't pretend anymore. I don't want you here as a worker. I don't want you here as a convenience. I want you here as Pa." They both turned. Rosie stood in the doorway, Emmett behind her. "Are you asking Miss Clara to marry you?" Clara's face flamed. Caleb actually laughed. "I was working up to it, little bird. You interrupted." "Oh." Rosie bounced on her heels. "Well, hurry up. I want to know if she says yes." Clara looked at the three of them, this broken, beautiful family. The man in the bed vulnerable and hopeful. The little girl practically vibrating with excitement. The boy guarded but watching with something like hope in his eyes. "I came here expecting to work for room and board," she said quietly. "I came here expecting nothing." Caleb's face fell. "But then your daughter made me promise to stay. And your son stopped hating me long enough to let me help. And you—" her voice wavered. "You called me quality. No one's ever called me that before." "Is that a yes?" Rosie demanded. Clara looked at Caleb, really looked, saw the fear beneath the hope, the wounds that still hadn't healed, the love he was offering despite every reason to stay closed off. "It's not a yes," she said. Rosie's face crumpled. Caleb went still. "It's a not yet." Clara squeezed his hand. "You're still healing. The children barely know me. We barely know each other. But Caleb—" She leaned closer. "Ask me again. When the snow melts, when you're on your feet. Ask me again and give me a reason to say yes." Understanding dawned in his eyes. She wasn't rejecting him. She was asking him to fight for her. "I'll give you 100 reasons," he said. 1,000. "Start with one." He thought for a moment. Then, "You make terrible coffee." Clara blinked. "What?" "Worst coffee I've ever tasted. Bitter as sin. But I drank every cup because you made it, and that was reason enough." She laughed, surprised and genuine. "That's your reason?" "It's my first one. I've got plenty more." Rosie pushed past Emmett and launched herself onto the bed, hugging her father and reaching for Clara at the same time. "This means you're staying. You're really staying." "I'm staying, sweetheart. And you'll marry Pa eventually. We'll see. But probably yes." Clara looked at Caleb over Rosie's head. He was smiling. Really smiling, the grief in his eyes, finally sharing space with something brighter. "Probably yes," she admitted. Emmett stepped forward. His face was carefully neutral, but Clara saw the tension in his shoulders. "Emmett." She held out her hand to him. "Is this all right with you?" He stared at her hand for a long moment. The whole room held its breath. Then he took it. "You saved Pa's life," he said gruffly. "And you didn't run when the wolves came. And you read poetry good." He paused. "I guess you're all right. For a mail-order bride." Coming from Emmett, it was practically a declaration of love. Clara pulled him into the embrace with his sister and father. For a moment, all four of them held on this patchwork family, stitched together by circumstance, and something that was starting to feel like love. "This is nice," Rosie mumbled against Clara's shoulder. "Can we do this every day?" "Every day," Clara promised, and this time she meant it. That night, after the children were asleep and Caleb was resting, Clara sat by the fire and opened her mother's poetry book. A pressed flower fell out, one she'd forgotten was there. A crocus, purple and gold. Her mother had pressed it years ago from the garden of their old home. Clara held it carefully, thought about endings and beginnings, about flowers that survived winter, about hope that refused to die. She'd come to Montana expecting nothing. She'd found everything. Outside, the snow was beginning to melt. Spring was coming, and Clara Ruth Bennett, who had once believed she'd never belong anywhere, finally had a home. 2 weeks later, Caleb took his first steps without help. Clara watched from the kitchen doorway, her hands still covered in flour from the bread she'd been kneading. He gripped the bedpost knuckles, white jaw clenched against the pane. "Careful," she said. "I've been careful for 2 weeks. I'm done being careful." He pushed off from the post, took one step, then another. His leg buckled on the third. Clara moved fast, catching him before he hit the floor. His weight pressed against her solid and warm. "Stubborn man. You keep calling me that. Because it keeps being true." Their faces were inches apart. Clara could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the new lines around his mouth, the way his gaze dropped to her lips before snapping back up. "Pa, you're walking!" Rosie's shriek broke the moment. She barreled into the room and threw herself at her father's good leg. "Careful, little bird. I'm still wobbly." "But you're up, Miss Clara. He's up." "I noticed." Clara steadied Caleb with one hand, brushed flour from her apron with the other. "Now sit before you fall again." Caleb let her guide him to a chair, but he caught her wrist before she could pull away. "Tonight," he said quietly, "after the children are asleep, I want to talk to you." Clara's heart skipped. "About what?" "About my first reason, and my second, and however many more you need." Heat flooded her cheeks. "Caleb, tonight." She nodded and fled to the kitchen before her face could give away anything else. The day passed in a blur of chores and anticipation. Clara couldn't focus. She burned the first batch of biscuits, dropped an egg, forgot to add salt to the stew until Emmett made a face at supper. "You feeling all right, Miss Clara?" Emmett asked, watching her with those too perceptive eyes. "Fine, just distracted." "Distracted by what?" Rosie giggled. "By Pa. She's distracted by Pa." "Rosie!" Clara's face flamed. "What?" "It's true. You keep looking at each other all moony-like. Even I can see it, and I'm only 5. Caleb choked on his coffee. Emmett looked between the adults with dawning understanding, then groaned. "Aw, come on. Do you have to be mushy at supper?" "No one's being mushy," Clara said firmly. "Pa's blushing," Rosie announced. "Pa never blushes." "Eat your stew," Caleb growled, but there was no heat in it. When his eyes met Clara's across the table, they were warm with barely suppressed laughter. She'd never felt like this, never had a family around a table teasing and talking and belonging to each other. Her own childhood had been formal, quiet, lonely. This was chaos. Beautiful, messy, wonderful chaos. And she never wanted it to end. After supper, Clara put the children to bed. Rosie demanded 3 stories instead of 1. Emmett pretended not to listen, but didn't leave the doorway until Clara finished. "Miss Clara?" Rosie's voice was sleepy. "Yes, sweetheart? When you and Pa get married, can I call you Mama?" Clara's breath caught. That's something we'd have to talk about. All of us. But would you mind if I called you that?" Clara smoothed the hair from Rosie's forehead. Thought about her own mother gone too soon. Thought about Martha Thornton, who'd never see her daughter grow up. "I wouldn't mind," she whispered. "I'd be honored." Rosie smiled and closed her eyes. Within moments, she was asleep. Clara stood. Emmett was still in the doorway. "You meant that," he said. "About being honored." "I did." He was quiet for a moment. "I can't call you that, Mama. It wouldn't be right." "I know, Emmett. I'd never ask you to." "But," he struggled with the words, "maybe someday I could call you something else, not Ma, but not Miss Clara either." Clara's eyes stung. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring it out." And he scuffed his foot against the floor. "Is that okay?" "That's more than okay. Take all the time you need." He nodded once sharply, then disappeared into his room. Clara stood alone in the hallway, her heart so full it hurt. She found Caleb waiting by the fire. He'd managed to move from the bedroom on his own, she could tell by the way he was favoring his leg. But he was dressed properly for the first time in weeks, his hair combed, his jaw freshly shaved. "You look better," she said. "Felt like it was time. Sit." She took the chair across from him. The fire crackled between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The weight of everything unsaid hung in the air, heavy and expectant. "I'm not good at this," Caleb finally said. "Never have been. Martha used to say I had all the romance of a fence post. Clara smiled. I don't need romance. No, you need honesty. So here's some. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on hers. When I placed that advertisement, I wanted a worker. Someone to help with the children, keep the house, stay out of my way. I didn't want to feel anything. Feeling things hurt too much. I understand. I know you do. That's part of why. He stopped, started again. When you walked through that door, I was angry. At God, at circumstance, at you. You weren't what I ordered. You were poor and proud, and you looked at me like you could see right through my walls. I was terrified, Clara admitted. I thought you'd send me back. I almost did. That first night I went to the barn and told myself I'd put you on the next stage. Told myself it was the practical thing to do. What changed? Hannah's laughter. His voice roughened. She laughed at something you said, and I realized I hadn't heard that sound in months. Months, Clara. My daughter, who used to laugh at everything, had gone silent. And you brought it back in one evening. Clara's throat tightened. She's easy to love. She is, and she loves you. God knows why, but she decided you were hers from the moment you walked in. And Emmett. Emmett's harder, but you know that. You've been patient with him. More patient than I've been. Shame flickered across Caleb's face. I've been so wrapped up in my own grief I forgot he was grieving too. You reminded me. You remind me of a lot of things I forgot. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Clara couldn't see what it was. I wasn't going to do this yet. You said to wait until the snow melted. But I've never been good at waiting, and I've got something to say that can't wait anymore. Caleb, let me finish, please. She nodded. You asked for reasons. I've been making a list. His voice cracked slightly. You make terrible coffee, but you make it anyway. You wear my dead wife's dress like it's armor instead of charity. You walked through a blizzard rather than beg for help. You ran toward wolves when any sane person would run away. He opened his hand. In his palm lay a ring, simple gold with a small blue stone. This was my grandmother's. She gave it to my grandfather when they had nothing but a wagon and a dream. She said the stone was the color of the sky on the day they met. He wore it until the day he died. Clara couldn't breathe. I know I'm asking a lot. I'm a widower with 2 children and a ranch that barely makes ends meet. I've got grief I'm still working through and a son who might never fully accept you. I'm not offering you an easy life. I've never wanted an easy life. Easy lives break too easily. Then what do you want, Clara? Tell me true. She looked at this man, rough-hewn and wounded, and offering her everything he had left to give. I want to belong somewhere, she said. I want to matter to someone. I want to wake up in the morning knowing I have a purpose, and go to sleep at night knowing I'm not alone. You have all that here. You've had it from the day you arrived, even if I was too blind to say it. Then yes. Caleb blinked. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll stay. Yes to all of it. He stared at her like she'd handed him the moon. Just like that. You gave me your reasons. You showed me who you are. What else is there to wait for? He crossed the space between them faster than a man with a wounded leg should be able to move. His hands cupped her face, gentle despite their roughness. Clara Ruth Bennett, you're the most stubborn, surprising, impossible woman I've ever met. Is that another reason? It's the best one. He kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, 2 people who'd forgotten how to trust. But then Clara's hands found his chest, felt his heart pounding beneath her palms, and something broke open between them. The kiss deepened. Caleb pulled her closer. Clara forgot about fear, forgot about doubt, forgot about everything except this moment, and this man, and this new beginning. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Clara laughed. What? Caleb asked. I was just thinking. A month ago, I was scrubbing floors for pennies in St. Louis. Now I'm engaged to a rancher in Montana. Having second thoughts. Not even one. He kissed her again, softer this time. We should tell the children. In the morning, let them sleep. Rosie's going to scream. Probably. Emmett might actually smile. Now you're dreaming. Caleb laughed, and the sound filled the cabin like music. Clara memorized it, this moment, this warmth, this impossible happiness. They sat together by the fire until the embers burned low, talking about nothing and everything. Plans for the ranch, ideas for the children, dreams neither of them had dared to speak aloud before. When Clara finally went to bed, she lay awake for a long time, holding her grandmother's ring up to catch the moonlight. Blue like the sky. Blue like hope. Blue like the new life waiting just beyond tomorrow. Rosie's reaction the next morning was exactly as predicted. You're getting married, Pa. You're getting married? Miss Clara's gonna be our new mama. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a pretty dress? Can I throw flowers? Clara caught her mid-leap and spun her around. Yes. Yes and yes. When's the wedding tomorrow? Can it be tomorrow? Not tomorrow, little bird. Caleb ruffled her hair. We need time to plan. Do it proper. But I don't want to wait. Some things are worth waiting for. Rosie pouted, but accepted the explanation. Emmett, standing by the stove with his breakfast, said nothing. Clara approached him carefully. Emmett, are you all right with this? He stirred his oatmeal without looking up. You're gonna marry Pa. Yes, if that's okay with you. Does it matter if it's okay with me? Clara knelt beside him. It matters more than anything. You're his son. You were here first. If this isn't right for you, I need to know. Emmett finally met her eyes. She saw the conflict there, the war between wanting to hold on and needing to let go. Ma would have liked you, he said quietly. She always said Pa needed someone to boss him around. Despite everything, Clara smiled. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. Emmett's voice thickened. You're not her. You'll never be her. I know. But, he struggled. But maybe that's okay. Maybe there's room for both of you. Clara's eyes filled. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. He didn't. She hugged him, and after a moment, his arms came up around her, holding tight. Thank you, Emmett, for giving me a chance. Don't make me regret it. I'll try not to. When she released him, he wiped his eyes quickly and went back to his oatmeal, pretending nothing had happened. But something had shifted between them. Another wall had fallen. Clara stood and found Caleb watching from the doorway. His eyes were bright with emotion. That boy hasn't let anyone hug him in 3 years, he said quietly. He's healing. You all are. Because of you. Because of each other. I'm just here. You're not just anything, Clara. You're everything. The sound of hooves interrupted them. Clara went to the window. Her stomach dropped. A rider was approaching fast, kicking up snow. And behind him came a wagon she recognized. Dorothea Harding's wagon. Something's wrong, she murmured. Caleb limped to her side. His jaw tightened when he saw who it was. What does she want now? The rider reached the cabin first. Clara recognized him, young Tom Harris, who worked at the general store. He was out of breath, face red from the cold. Mr. Thornton. There's been trouble in town. What kind of trouble? Tom glanced at Clara, then back to Caleb. Mrs. Harding's been telling folks about about Miss Bennett. Saying things. Clara's blood ran cold. What things? That well, ma'am, that she's not a proper woman. That she was run out of St. Louis for immoral conduct. That she's lying about her past. That's a lie. Clara's voice shook. I know, ma'am. Some of us know it's just Mrs. Harding being spiteful, but others are believing it. Doc Warren sent me to warn you. There's a group of women planning to come out here, to demand Mr. Thornton send you away." Caleb's face went dark. "Let them come." "Caleb," Clara touched his arm. "If the town turns against us, then the town can hang itself. I know the truth. The children know the truth. That's what matters." "But the children have to live in that town, shop in those stores, go to that church." The wagon had reached them now. Dorothea Harding descended like a queen surveying conquered territory. Behind her came 3 other women, their faces set in righteous judgment. "Caleb Thornton," Mrs. Harding's voice carried across the yard. "We've come to discuss a matter of grave concern." "You're not welcome here, Dorothea." "This isn't about welcome. This is about decency. About protecting your children from—" Her eyes slid to Clara. "From influences that corrupt." Clara stepped forward. Her heart hammered, but her voice came out steady. "Mrs. Harding, whatever lies you've been spreading, I'd like the chance to address them directly." "Lies? I merely shared what anyone could discover with a few inquiries. A woman who was dismissed from her teaching position. A woman who was engaged and then abandoned. A woman who lost everything and came here with nothing but the clothes on her back. All true, but not the whole truth. Then enlighten us." Clara looked at the gathered women, at their suspicious eyes, their closed faces. She thought about running, thought about hiding. Then she thought about Rosie calling her mama, about Emmett letting her hug him, about Caleb standing behind her ready to fight for her. She was done running. "My fiancé left me for another woman 2 weeks before our wedding," Clara said, her voice clear. "The scandal was not of my making, but I bore the shame of it anyway. My father died and left nothing but debt which I paid in full rather than hide from. I lost my teaching position not because of misconduct, but because a single woman without family connections was considered unsuitable." She stepped closer to Mrs. Harding. "I came here in rags because I refused to borrow finery to deceive. I came here in poverty because I refused to sell my honor to save myself. Everything I am is standing before you, and I am not ashamed of any of it." Silence. One of the women shifted uncomfortably. Another wouldn't meet Clara's eyes. "Pretty speech," Mrs. Harding said coldly. "But speech proves nothing." "Then what will prove it? What do you want from me?" "I want you gone. This town has standards. We don't accept just anyone." "You accepted my wife." Caleb's voice was dangerous. "Martha came here with nothing but a wagon and her faith. You welcomed her because she was willing to work, willing to contribute, willing to be part of this community. Clara's no different. Martha came from a proper family. This woman is going to be my wife." The announcement fell like a stone in still water. Mrs. Harding's face went white. "You can't be serious." "Never been more serious in my life. And if this town has a problem with that, then this town has a problem with me." "Caleb, think of your children." "I am thinking of my children. My daughter adores Clara. My son respects her. She's brought more light into this house in a month than we've had in 3 years. She's a beggar, a nobody. She'll drag your family name through the mud." Clara waited for the words to hurt. They didn't. Not anymore. "My family name," Caleb said slowly, "means nothing without family to carry it. Clara's given me that back. Gave me hope when I'd forgotten what hope felt like. If that makes me a fool, then I'm proud to be one." He moved to Clara's side and took her hand. "Now I'll ask you once more to leave my property, and I won't ask again." Mrs. Harding's composure cracked. For a moment, Clara saw the fear beneath the cruelty, the desperate need to control that came from a life of having nothing real. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I've regretted plenty in my life. Loving Clara won't be one of them." The women retreated. As the wagon turned, one of them looked back, a young woman Clara didn't recognize. Her expression wasn't hostile. It was almost envious. Clara wondered what her story was, what dreams she'd buried, what hopes she'd abandoned to fit in with women like Dorothea Harding. When the wagon disappeared over the hill, Clara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That was... Caleb pulled her close. That was me choosing you. In front of everyone. No going back now. I didn't ask you to fight my battles. You didn't have to. Your battles are mine now. That's what family means. Clara buried her face in his chest. His heart beat steady against her ear. Strong, certain, hers. Pa. They turned. Rosie and Emmett stood in the doorway. They'd heard everything. Those ladies were mean, Rosie announced. I don't like them. Nobody likes them, little bird. Miss Clara told them the truth and they still didn't believe her. That's not fair. No, it's not. Emmett stepped forward. His face was hard, older than his years. What happens now if the town's against her? Clara answered before Caleb could. Then we prove them wrong. We live our lives honestly, treat people fairly, and eventually the truth wins out. And if it doesn't, then we'll still have each other. That's more than most people can say. Emmett considered this. Then he nodded once. I'm going to finish my chores. He headed for the barn. Rosie skipped after him, already chattering about the wedding again. Caleb watched them go, then turned back to Clara. You handled that well. I've had practice, being judged, being found wanting. You learn to stand up straight and keep walking. You shouldn't have had to learn that. No, but I did. And it brought me here. She reached up and touched his face. Maybe all those hard things were leading somewhere after all. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. Marry me soon, he said. I don't want to wait anymore. I thought you said good things were worth waiting for. They are. But I've waited long enough. I want to start our life together. Clara thought about propriety, about what people would say, about all the reasons she should insist on a proper engagement period. Then she thought about Mrs. Harding's face, about the years she'd already lost to other people's expectations. Next month, she said, as soon as the roads are fully clear. Caleb's face broke into a smile. Next month. But we do it properly, in the church, with the children. I want everyone to see that we have nothing to hide. The same church where Dorothea Harding sits in the front pew. Especially that church. I want her to watch us make vows she couldn't stop. Caleb laughed. Clara Bennett, you've got a vengeful streak. I prefer to think of it as justice. He kissed her then, right there in the yard where anyone riding by could see. Clara kissed him back, not caring who watched. Let them look, let them whisper, let them wonder. She'd found her place, her family, her home, and nothing, not gossip, not judgment, not all the misses, Hardings in the world would take it from her. That night Clara wrote a letter. She hadn't written to anyone in St. Louis since she'd left. There was no one who cared enough to read. But now she had news worth sharing, even if only with paper. She wrote about the blizzard, the wolves, the fever. She wrote about Rosie's laugh and Emmett's slow thaw. She wrote about Caleb, his stubbornness and his goodness, and the way he looked at her like she was something precious. She wrote about the wedding. When she finished, she folded the letter and tucked it into her mother's poetry book. Not to send, just to keep, a record of how far she'd come. What are you writing? She turned. Emmett stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Just thoughts, memories, things I want to remember. He hesitated, then crossed the room and sat down across from her. Will you teach me to write like that? Real writing, not just letters and numbers? Clara's heart swelled. Of course, we can start tomorrow if you'd like. Ma was teaching me, before. He looked down at his hands. She said words were powerful, that if you could write them down, you could make things real. She was right. Words can change everything. Emmett was quiet for a long moment. Then so softly, she almost missed it, he said something that changed everything. I'm glad you came, Miss Clara. I'm glad Pa found you. Clara reached across the table and took his hand. He led her. "I'm glad too, Emmett. More than I can say." Outside, the wind had died. The snow was beginning to melt. And somewhere in the distance, the first birds of spring were starting to sing. The wedding was set for the last Sunday of February. Clara spent the weeks leading up to it in a haze of preparation and disbelief. Every morning she woke expecting to find it had all been a dream. Every night she fell asleep with Caleb's ring on her finger, proof that it was real. Rosie threw herself into planning with the enthusiasm of 10 children. She wanted flowers everywhere. She wanted music. She wanted Clara's dress to have ribbons and lace and everything beautiful. "Sweetheart, we don't have money for ribbons and lace." "Then I'll make them, Miss Clara. I can tear strips from my old petticoat. Emmett can help me braid them. It'll be pretty. I promise." Clara didn't have the heart to refuse. 3 days before the wedding, Doc Warren rode out to the ranch. Clara met him at the door, worried something was wrong. "Relax, Miss Bennett. I come bearing gifts, not bad news." He held up a wrapped parcel. Clara took it, confused. "What is this?" "Open it." She did. Inside lay fabric, fine white cotton with delicate blue flowers embroidered along the edges. Enough for a dress, a wedding dress. Clara's hands trembled. "Doc Warren, I can't accept this." "It's not from me. It's from the women of Bitter Creek." She stared at him. "The women who wanted me run out of town." "Not all of them. Some of us remember what it's like to be judged unfairly." He smiled, weathered face crinkling. "Mrs. Patterson organized it. Said she was ashamed of how she'd acted at the Harding woman's behest. This is her way of apologizing." Clara unfolded the fabric. It was beautiful, far finer than anything she'd owned in years. "There's more," Doc Warren added. "Mrs. Patterson and 3 others want to help you sew it. They're riding out tomorrow if you'll have them." Clara's eyes filled. Why would they do this?" "Because you stood in front of them and told the truth without flinching. That takes courage, Miss Bennett. People respect courage even when they're too scared to show it themselves." He tipped his hat and turned to go. "Doc Warren." He looked back. "Thank you. For warning us about Mrs. Harding. For everything." "Don't thank me. Just be happy. Lord knows this territory needs more happiness." He rode away, leaving Clara holding fabric and hope and the growing realization that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. The women came the next day. Mrs. Patterson was older than Clara expected, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with hands that moved quick and sure over the fabric. Behind her came Mrs. Cole, Mrs. Brennan, and young Sarah Daniels, the woman Clara had noticed looking back from Mrs. Harding's wagon. "I owe you an apology," Mrs. Patterson said without preamble. "I let Dorothea Harding lead me around by the nose like a prize heifer. That ain't who I am, and I'm ashamed of it." "Mrs. Patterson, let me finish. I knew what she was doing was wrong, knew it in my bones, but I was too cowardly to speak up. When you stood there and told your truth, I realized I'd forgotten how to tell mine." She held out her hand. Clara took it. "I'd be honored to help make your wedding dress, if you'll have me." Clara squeezed her fingers. "I'd like that very much." They worked together all day. The women measured and cut and stitched while Rosie watched with enormous eyes, occasionally offering suggestions that were sweetly impractical. Emmett pretended not to care, but lingered nearby, fetching thread and scissors when asked. As they sewed, the women talked. About their lives, their families, their struggles. Mrs. Cole had lost 2 children to scarlet fever. Mrs. Brennan's husband drank too much. Sarah Daniels was engaged to a man she didn't love because her family needed the money. Clara listened and shared her own story in return. The broken engagement, the debts, the years of scraping by, the advertisement that had brought her here. "You're braver than me," Sarah said quietly. "I don't think I could start over somewhere new with nothing but hope." "Hope was all I had. It was enough." "Was it?" Clara thought about Caleb, about Rosie and Emmett, about the life she was building from the ashes of the one she'd lost. It was more than enough. It was everything. By evening, the dress was nearly finished. The women packed up their supplies, promising to return the next day to complete the final touches. At the door, Sarah lingered. "Miss Bennet, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you know that Mr. Thornton was worth the risk?" Clara considered the question. "I didn't. Not at first. But he showed me. Every day in small ways. The way he loves his children. The way he stood up for me when it would have been easier not to. The way he sees me not who I was or what I have, but who I am." Sarah's eyes glistened. "I wish someone would see me like that." "Someone will. But you have to let them. You have to believe you're worth seeing." Sarah nodded slowly. Then impulsively she hugged Clara. "Thank you for giving me something to hope for." She was gone before Clara could respond. The night before the wedding, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Tomorrow she would become Clara Thornton. Tomorrow she would have a family. Tomorrow everything would change. A knock at her door. "Come in." Caleb entered holding a candle. His face was soft in the flickering light. "Can't sleep either." "No." Clara sat up. "Too much thinking." He sat on the edge of her bed, close enough to touch, not quite touching. "Having doubts." "No, not doubts, just wondering how I got here. A year ago I was alone, broken, certain my life was over. Now I'm about to marry a man I love, become mother to 2 children, build a life I never thought I'd have. Do you love me?" She looked at him, really looked. At the lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the scars life had left on him. "I do. I didn't expect to. Didn't want to. But you made it impossible not to." He took her hand. "Martha was the love of my youth. Bright and beautiful and full of dreams. I thought when I lost her, I'd never feel anything again." Clara waited. "But you're different. You're the love of my second chance. Stronger for being broken. Braver for being afraid. I didn't fall in love with you, Clara. I chose to love you. Every day. And I'll keep choosing as long as you'll let me." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Caleb Thornton, if you make me cry the night before my wedding." He kissed her. Soft. Tender. A promise sealed without words. "Get some sleep," he murmured against her lips. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day. A good day. The best day. The start of all our best days." He left her with the taste of hope on her lips and dreams she finally believed in. Morning came bright and cold. Clara woke to Rosie bouncing on her bed. "It's your wedding day. It's your wedding day. Get up, get up, get up." Clara laughed and pulled the child into a hug. "I'm awake, sweetheart. Mrs. Patterson's here, and Mrs. Cole. They brought food and flowers, and they're making Pa stay in the barn so he doesn't see you before the ceremony." Clara's heart raced. This was real. This was happening. The next few hours were a whirlwind. The women helped her into the dress, exclaiming over how beautiful she looked. Rosie wove ribbons through her hair. Even Emmett contributed shyly, offering a sprig of winter jasmine he'd found growing near the creek. "For your bouquet," he mumbled. "Ma used to love jasmine." Clara accepted it with trembling hands. "Thank you, Emmett. This means everything." He ducked his head, embarrassed, but she saw the pride in his eyes. The church in Bitter Creek was small but clean. Clara rode there in the wagon with the children, her heart pounding harder with every turn of the wheels. "Nervous?" Emmett asked. "Terrified." "Good. Pa's terrified too. I heard him telling the horses this morning." Clara laughed, despite her nerves. "Your father talks to horses when he's scared. Pa talks to horses about everything. Says they're better listeners than people." The church appeared ahead. Clara's breath caught. People were gathered outside. More people than she'd expected. Not just the women who'd helped with her dress, but men too. Families. Children. Half the town, it seemed. "What?" Clara trailed off. "Doc Warren spread the word," Mrs. Patterson said from the wagon seat. "Said anyone who wanted to see what real love looks like should come to the Thornton wedding." Clara's eyes filled. She blinked hard, refusing to cry before she even got inside. Caleb was waiting at the altar. He wore his best suit, the one he'd told Clara he'd only worn once before at Martha's funeral. His hair was combed, his boots polished, his face shaved clean. But what struck Clara most was his expression. Wonder, joy, a love so fierce it took her breath away. She walked toward him, on legs that trembled. Every step felt like a lifetime. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. The congregation blurred around her until all she could see was him. Caleb took her hands when she reached the altar. His grip was warm, steady, sure. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "You're not supposed to talk yet." "Can't help it. You take my breath away." The Reverend cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple. Traditional vows spoken with voices that shook with emotion. Rings exchanged with trembling fingers. Promises made before God and the community that had finally accepted them. When the Reverend said, "You may kiss the bride," Caleb cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Clara Thornton." "I love you too, Caleb Thornton." He kissed her, and the church erupted in cheers. Rosie was the loudest, jumping up and down in the front pew. Emmett was clapping, actually clapping a smile on his face that Clara had never seen before. They walked out of the church as husband and wife. The cold air hit Clara's flushed cheeks, but she barely felt it. She was floating. "Mrs. Thornton?" Caleb squeezed her hand. "Has a nice ring to it." "I think so too." The celebration that followed was modest but warm. Food and music and laughter, people coming forward to offer congratulations. Clara lost count of how many hands she shook, how many well wishes she received. And then she saw her. Dorothea Harding stood at the edge of the crowd. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't sneering either. She looked diminished, smaller than before. Their eyes met across the churchyard. Clara expected to feel triumph, victory. Instead, she felt only sadness for a woman who had so much and understood so little. She walked over. Caleb tried to hold her back, but she shook her head. "Mrs. Harding." "Mrs. Thornton." The name came out bitter, but Dorothea forced it through. "Thank you for coming. I didn't come to celebrate." "I know, but you came. That's something." Dorothea's jaw tightened. "You think you've won." "I think I've found happiness. That's not winning or losing. That's just living." My daughter could have given Caleb everything. Money, status, a proper wife. Maybe. But he didn't want proper. He wanted real. Something flickered in Dorothea's eyes. Pain, maybe. Or regret. "I had real once," she said quietly. "Before my husband died. Before I learned that real doesn't pay bills or keep you warm at night." Clara saw her then, not as an enemy, but as a woman who had lost herself somewhere along the way. "It's not too late," Clara said softly, "to find it again." Dorothea stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Clara watched her go, felt Caleb's arm come around her waist. "What did you say to her?" "The truth. It's all I know how to give." He kissed her temple. "That's why I love you." They returned to the celebration. Rosie demanded dances. Emmett actually laughed at something Doc Warren said. The afternoon stretched into evening, full of warmth and joy and belonging. When they finally headed home, the four of them piled into the wagon together, Clara's head on Caleb's shoulder, Rosie asleep in her lap. Emmett quietly humming a tune he'd heard at the party. Home. The word had never meant anything to Clara before. Now it meant everything. That night after the children were in bed, Caleb led Clara outside. "What are we doing?" She laughed, clutching her shawl against the cold. Something I should have done weeks ago. He guided her to the porch, to the spot where she'd first stood frozen and desperate on Christmas Eve. "This is where I first saw you," he said. "Right here. You were covered in snow, wearing rags, holding that little carpet bag like it was all you had in the world." "It was all I had in the world." "I know, and I almost turned you away. Almost let my fear cost me the best thing that ever happened to me." He pulled something from his pocket. A carved wooden flower, delicate and beautiful, painted in soft colors. "I made this for you. Those weeks when I was healing. I wanted to give you something, but I didn't have words. So I made this instead." Clara took it with shaking hands. The petals were perfect. The stem curved gracefully. It was art created by calloused hands that had learned gentleness. "Caleb, it's beautiful. It's a crocus, first flower of spring. Comes up through the snow when everything else is still frozen." He touched her face. "That's you, Clara. Coming up through the cold. Blooming when no one expected it. Showing me that life goes on even after winter." Clara threw her arms around him, held tight. Let herself cry because these were tears of joy, and joy was something she'd denied herself for too long. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you. I love you. I love you." "I love you too, Mrs. Thornton. Today, tomorrow, every day after." They stood together on the porch, holding each other while the stars wheeled overhead and the Montana wind carried the first hints of spring. Inside, their children slept. Outside, a new life was beginning. And Clara, Ruth Bennett Thornton, who had arrived in rags with nothing but her pride, finally understood what it meant to be rich. Weeks turned to months. Clara settled into her new life like she'd been born to it. She learned the rhythm of the ranch, the needs of the cattle, the 1,000 small tasks that kept a homestead running. Her hands grew rough with work. Her heart grew full with love. Rosie bloomed under her attention. The nightmares stopped. The laughter increased. She followed Clara everywhere, chattering constantly, asking questions that ranged from profound to absurd. "Miss Clara, I mean, Mama, can chickens dream?" "I imagine they can, sweetheart." "What do you think they dream about?" "Corn, probably. And warm nests. I dream about you, and Pa, and Emmett, and our whole family being together forever." Clara's heart clenched. "That's a beautiful dream, Rosie. It's not just a dream anymore, is it? It's real now." "Yes, baby, it's real now." Emmett's transformation was slower, but no less remarkable. He started seeking Clara out for conversations, asking her to read with him, showing her things he'd found on the ranch, interesting rocks and bird feathers, and once a snakeskin that made her shriek and him laugh. "You're not so scary after all," he told her one afternoon. "Scary? When was I scary?" "When you first came. I thought you were going to change everything. Make Pa forget about Ma. Make everything different. And now," he considered, "now I think different isn't so bad. Ma would have wanted Pa to be happy. And he's happy with you. Are you happy, Emmett?" He thought about it seriously, the way he thought about everything. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think I am." "Why?" It was the greatest gift he could have given her. March brought mud and snowmelt and the first green shoots pushing through the earth. April brought rain and more rain, turning the roads to rivers and the fields to lakes. And May brought something else entirely. Clara woke one morning feeling strange, lightheaded, queasy. She brushed it off as tiredness and went about her day. But the feeling persisted, day after day, morning after morning. Finally, she counted back, counted again, felt her heart stop. "Clara?" Caleb found her standing by the window, hand pressed to her stomach. "What's wrong?" She turned to face him. Her eyes were wide, terrified, hopeful. "I think I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Caleb went very still. "Pregnant," he repeated. "I'm not certain, but the signs, "Caleb, I think we're going to have a baby." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then his face cracked into a smile so bright it could have lit the whole territory. "A baby. Clara, we're having a baby." He swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around until she was laughing and crying and begging him to stop before she was sick. Sorry. He set her down gently. I never thought. After Martha." His voice broke. Clara understood. Martha had died in childbirth. The fear must be overwhelming. "I'm strong," she said firmly. "I'm healthy. And we're going to do this together." "Together," he agreed. But she saw the shadow in his eyes, the terror he was trying to hide. She took his face in her hands. "Look at me. I am not Martha. What happened to her was a tragedy, but it doesn't have to be my story. We'll be careful. We'll have Doc Warren check on me regularly. We'll be prepared." "I can't lose you, Clara. I can't." "You won't. I promise." It was a promise she couldn't make, not really. But she made it anyway, because love required promises, even the impossible ones. They told the children that evening. Rosie's reaction was immediate and explosive. "A baby. We're getting a baby. Is it a boy or a girl? Can I name it? Can I help take care of it? Will it sleep in my room?" "We don't know if it's a boy or girl yet, sweetheart, and we have months to figure out the rest." "Months, but I want the baby now. Babies take time to grow, just like vegetables in a garden." Rosie wrinkled her nose. "The baby's a vegetable." Emmett snorted. "She means the baby needs time to get bigger before it's born, dummy." "Don't call me a dummy. Don't act like one. Children." Caleb's voice cut through the squabbling. "This is happy news. Let's keep it that way." Rosie stuck her tongue out at Emmett. He rolled his eyes. Normal sibling behavior, Clara thought. Beautiful, ordinary, wonderful. But later, when Rosie was in bed, and Caleb had gone to check on the horses, Emmett approached Clara. "Are you scared?" he asked quietly. Clara looked at this boy who had become her son in everything but blood. He deserved honesty. "A little. Having a baby is always a bit scary." "Pa's scared too, I can tell. Your pa worries about the people he loves. That's just who he is." Emmett was quiet for a moment. "My ma, she was happy about Rosie. So happy. Said a baby was the best gift God could give." His voice tightened. "And then God took her away." Clara's heart broke for him. "Oh, Emmett. I don't want to lose you too. It's stupid because I didn't even like you at first, but now—" He couldn't finish. Clara pulled him into a hug. He resisted for half a second, then collapsed against her. "I'm going to do everything I can to stay here," she murmured. "To watch you and Rosie grow up. To raise this new baby alongside you. I can't promise nothing will go wrong, but I can promise I'll fight with everything I have. Is that enough?" He nodded against her shoulder. "It's enough." They stood there for a long time holding each other. Two people who had learned the hard way that love and loss walked hand in hand. But they had also learned something else. Love was worth the risk. Always. The summer passed in a blur of heat and work and growing anticipation. Clara's belly swelled with new life. Doc Warren came out twice a month to check on her, pronouncing her healthy each time, but cautioning rest. Clara tried to listen, tried to slow down, but there was always something that needed doing, and she'd never been one to sit idle. "You're as stubborn as a mule," Caleb told her one evening, watching her hang laundry despite his protests. "Learned from the best." "I'm serious, Clara," Doc said to rest. Doc said to be careful. There's a difference. She reached for the clothesline and felt a sharp twinge in her side. Gasped, dropped the sheet. Caleb was beside her in an instant. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Nothing," Just a cramp." "That's not nothing. Inside. Now." She let him lead her to a chair, too tired to argue. The truth was, she'd been having cramps for days. Small ones, easy to ignore. But they were getting stronger. "Maybe I should send for Doc Warren," Caleb said, his face pale. "It's probably nothing. The baby's just moving." "Clara?" "Fine. If it happens again, we'll send for him." It happened again that night. Clara woke to pain sharp and insistent low in her belly. She lay still, breathing through it, counting the seconds until it passed. 1 minute, 2. The pain ebbed. She didn't wake Caleb. Didn't want to worry him over what might be nothing. Instead, she lay in the darkness, her hand on her stomach, feeling the baby move. "It's all right," she whispered. "You're all right. We're all right." The baby kicked in response, strong and sure. Clara closed her eyes and prayed it was true. Morning brought no more pains, and Clara convinced herself she'd been worried over nothing. She went about her day as usual, feeding chickens, kneading bread, helping Rosie with her letters. "Mama, look, I wrote my name all by myself." Clara examined the paper. Rosie, spelled out in careful, wobbly letters. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. You're getting so good." Emmett helped me with the E. He says E is the trickiest letter. He's right. E likes to hide in words where you don't expect it. Rosie giggled. "Letters are funny. Emmett says when the baby comes, he'll teach it to read too. Will you let him, Mama?" Clara's heart swelled. "Of course. Emmett's going to be a wonderful big brother. He's already my big brother. Now he'll be the baby's too. That means he's double important." "That's exactly right." Emmett appeared in the doorway, pretending he hadn't heard. But Clara saw the pride on his face before he masked it with indifference. "Pa needs help in the barn," he said. "Some of the fencing came loose. Tell him I'll be there in a minute." "He said you should rest?" "I'm resting. See, sitting right here." Emmett rolled his eyes, so like his father it made Clara laugh. "I'll tell him you're being stubborn." "You do that." He left, and Clara turned back to Rosie's letters, cherishing the ordinary sweetness of the moment. But ordinary didn't last. 2 weeks later, in the dead of night, Clara woke to wetness beneath her. She sat up confused and felt the gush of fluid soaking through her nightgown. "Caleb?" Her voice came out strange, thin. "Caleb, wake up." He was awake instantly, years of ranching training him to alertness. "What is it?" "The baby's coming." He went white. "Now?" "But it's too early. You've got 3 weeks left." "Tell that to the baby." Another pain hit harder than before. Clara gripped the bed frame, breathing through clenched teeth. "I need to get Doc Warren." Caleb was already moving, pulling on clothes. "I'll ride fast, an hour there, an hour back." "Caleb, I don't think I have 2 hours." "You have to. Just hold on. I'll be back as fast as I can." He kissed her forehead, his lips trembling against her skin. "I love you. Do you hear me? I love you, and you are not leaving me." "I love you too. Now go." He ran. Clara heard the door slam, heard hoofbeats fading into the night. Then she was alone. Another contraction. She bit down on her fist to keep from screaming. The children were sleeping. She didn't want to frighten them. But Rosie appeared anyway. Small figure in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Mama, what's wrong?" Clara forced her voice to stay calm. "The baby's coming, sweetheart. Papa went to get the doctor." Rosie's eyes went wide. "Now, right now?" "Right now." "What do I do? How do I help?" Clara looked at this child, this precious girl who had called her mama from almost the first day. "Get Emmett. Tell him to boil water and bring clean cloths. Can you do that?" Rosie nodded solemnly and ran. Minutes later, Emmett appeared. His face was scared but determined. "What do you need?" "Water, cloths, and rope." "Rope?" "To tie to the bed frame. I need something to hold on to." He didn't question further. He brought everything she asked for, moving with a calm efficiency that reminded her sharply of his father. The pains were coming faster now, closer together. Clara's body was doing what it was meant to do, whether she was ready or not. "Emmett, I need you to listen to me." "I'm listening." "If something goes wrong, if Doc Warren doesn't make it in time." She paused, riding out another contraction. "The baby is what matters. Do you understand?" "No." His voice cracked. "No, you don't get to say that. You promised you'd stay. You promised." "Emmett!" "You promised." Tears were streaming down his face now. This boy who'd built walls so high, who'd fought so hard against loving her, was breaking apart at the thought of losing her. Clara grabbed his hand. "Listen to me. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight with everything I have. But babies are unpredictable, and bodies don't always cooperate. If it comes down to a choice, I need to know you'll help the baby." "I don't know how." "You'll figure it out. You're smart and brave, and you've got your mother's strength in you." "Which mother?" The question hung in the air. Clara understood what he was really asking. "Both of them," she said softly. "Martha gave you life, and I tried to help you live it." Emmett's face crumpled. He fell to his knees beside the bed and buried his face in the blankets. "I can't lose you. Not another mother. I can't." "Then help me. Stay with me. Be brave for me." He raised his head, wiped his eyes, nodded once. "What do you need?" "Your hand. Just your hand." He gave it to her, held on tight, and together they waited. The hours stretched like years. Clara lost track of time. There was only pain and breathing, and Emmett's hand in hers, steady and strong. Rosie had fallen asleep in the corner, exhausted by fear and the late hour. Clara was grateful. What was coming next was not for a child to see. She felt the change in her body, the pressure building, the overwhelming urge to push. "Emmett, it's happening." His face went white. "But Doc Warren isn't here yet." "Doesn't matter. The baby's coming now." "I don't know what to do." "Look at me." She gripped his shoulders. "You can do this. I'll tell you what to do. But you have to stay calm. Can you do that?" He swallowed hard, nodded. "Good. Now get to the end of the bed. You need to catch the baby." He moved into position, hands shaking face, terrified but resolved. Clara pushed. The pain was beyond anything she'd ever felt. Beyond the cold of the blizzard, beyond the fear of the wolves, beyond every hardship she'd faced in her 34 years. But she pushed, and pushed, and pushed. "I see it." Emmett's voice cracked. "I see the head." "Good. When I push again, you guide the shoulders, gently. Support the head." She pushed again, screamed, didn't care who heard. And then suddenly, blessedly, the pressure released. A cry filled the cabin, thin and reedy and absolutely beautiful. "It's a girl." Emmett's voice was filled with wonder. "Miss Clara, Mama, it's a girl." Clara fell back against the pillows, laughing and crying. "Give her to me. Let me see her." Emmett placed the baby on Clara's chest. A tiny creature, red and wrinkled and perfect, wailing her protest at being born. "Hello, little one." Clara's voice broke. "Hello, my beautiful girl." The door burst open. Caleb stood there, chest-heaving Doc Warren right behind him. He took in the scene, the exhausted wife, the crying baby, the son with blood on his hands and tears on his cheeks. "She's here," Emmett said. "I delivered her. Mama talked me through it, and I delivered her." Caleb crossed the room in 3 strides. He fell to his knees beside the bed, hands hovering over Clara and the baby, like he was afraid to touch them. "You're all right. You're both all right." "We're all right." Clara smiled through her tears. "We're perfect." Doc Warren moved in to check on mother and baby, murmuring approval at what he saw. "Good work, son," he told Emmett. "You did good." Emmett looked at his hands like he was seeing them for the first time. "I didn't think I could do it, but she needed me." Caleb put his hand on his son's shoulder. "I'm proud of you. Your mother would be proud of you." "Which one?" Caleb looked at Clara, then back at Emmett. "Both of them." Emmett's face crumpled again. But this time, when he cried, it wasn't from grief. It was from belonging. They named her Hope. Clara's idea, and Caleb agreed without argument. After everything they'd been through, after every obstacle, and every fear Hope had brought them here. Rosie was enchanted with her baby sister. She spent hours watching Hope sleep, singing to her, telling her stories about the ranch and the chickens, and how Mama had come in a blizzard and stayed forever. Emmett was more reserved, but Clara caught him standing over the cradle when he thought no one was watching. Caught him whispering promises to his baby sister about how he'd protect her, teach her be the best big brother in all of Montana. And Caleb. Caleb was transformed. The grief that had shadowed him for 3 years finally lifted. Not gone, never completely gone, but lighter. He smiled more, laughed more, held Clara like she was precious, held Hope like she was a miracle. Because she was. They all were. One evening when Hope was 3 months old, Clara sat on the porch watching the sunset. Caleb joined her, lowering himself into the chair beside hers. "What are you thinking about?" Clara smiled. "That day, when I arrived. Christmas Eve. I thought my life was over. I'd lost everything, had nothing but a carpet bag and a desperate hope that somewhere someone needed me. I needed you." Caleb took her hand. "I just didn't know it yet. Neither of us knew what we were getting into. Best surprise of my life." Clara looked at him, this man who had become her whole world, the father of her children, the partner of her days, the love of her second chance. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't answered that advertisement?" "Sometimes. And then I stop because that path doesn't bear thinking about. I used to wonder if I'd made a mistake, leaving everything I knew for a stranger in Montana. And now? Now I know it wasn't a mistake. It was a gift. Every hardship, every heartbreak, every moment of despair, it all led me here. To you. To our family." Caleb raised her hand to his lips. "I love you, Clara Thornton." "I love you too, Caleb Thornton." "Mama, Papa." Rosie's voice rang from inside. "Hope's making funny noises again." They looked at each other and laughed. "Our public awaits," Clara said. "Wouldn't have it any other way." They went inside together to where their children waited, to where dinner was cooling on the table, to where a new baby was discovering her voice for the first time. Home. Family. Love. Clara had come to Montana with nothing. Now, she had everything. The following spring, Clara planted a garden. Not just vegetables, though there were plenty of those, but flowers too. Crocuses specifically. Purple and gold, like the ones Caleb had carved for her, like the one pressed in her mother's poetry book. "Why crocuses?" Rosie asked, helping her dig in the soft earth. "Because they're the first flowers to bloom after winter. They push up through the snow when everything else is still frozen." "Like you," Emmett said from the porch where he was watching Hope in her basket. "You came through the snow too." Clara smiled at him. This boy who had become her son, who had delivered her daughter, who had finally let himself love again. "Like all of us," she said. "We all came through the winter." Caleb appeared leading a new horse he'd bought at the spring market, a gentle mare for Rosie to learn on. "Look, little bird, what do you think?" Rosie shrieked with delight and ran to him, leaving Clara with a half-planted crocus in her hand. She didn't mind. She finished the planting herself, pressing the bulb into the earth with careful fingers. "Grow strong," she whispered. "Bloom bright." A prayer, a promise, a hope for the future. That evening they ate supper together as they always did. Emmett talking about the new calf he'd helped deliver. Rosie chattering about her horse. Hope babbling in her high chair, reaching for everything within arm's length. And Clara and Caleb watching it all with the quiet joy of people who know how precious ordinary moments are. "I have something for you," Caleb said after the children had gone to bed. "Another gift, you spoil me." "Not nearly enough." He handed her a small wooden box. Inside lay a carving more intricate than any he'd done before. A family. Father, mother, 3 children, standing together outside a tiny cabin surrounded by flowers. "It's us," Clara breathed. "It's us." She traced the figures with her finger. The tall father, the mother with her hand on her belly, the 2 older children at their sides, the baby in the mother's arms. "When did you make this?" "Been working on it for months. Wanted to get it right." Clara's eyes filled. "It's perfect. So are you." He cupped her face in his hands. "So is this life we've built. I never thought I'd have this again. Never thought I'd want it. And now I can't imagine anything else." She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for choosing me, for giving me this life. Thank you for walking through that blizzard, for not giving up, for being stubborn enough to stay." Clara laughed. "You keep calling me stubborn." "Because you keep proving it, every day." "Is that a complaint?" "Never." He kissed her again. "It's the reason I love you." They sat together in the quiet cabin, holding the wooden family between them. Outside the night was cold, but calm. Spring was just beginning, and with it new growth, new possibilities, new hope. Clara thought about her journey, from St. Louis to Montana, from poverty to plenty, from alone to surrounded by love. She'd come in rags on Christmas Eve, nothing but her pride to carry her. Now she had a husband who cherished her, children who called her mama, a home filled with laughter and warmth. Worth, she understood now, had nothing to do with money or status or fine clothes. Worth was measured in the love you gave and the love you received, in the family you built and the lives you touched, in the courage to keep going when everything seemed lost. She'd been worthless in the eyes of St. Louis society, but here in Montana, in this cabin with this family, she was priceless. And that was the only truth that mattered. Years later, when people asked Clara Thornton how she'd ended up in Montana, she always told the same story. About a blizzard and a carpetbag, about a stubborn rancher and his 2 grieving children, about wolves and fever and a town that almost turned against her, but mostly about hope. "I came here with nothing," she'd say, bouncing her grandchildren on her knee, while her children rolled their eyes at a story they'd heard 1,000 times. "Nothing but hope." "And what did you find?" the little ones always asked. Clara would smile, look at Caleb across the room, older now, silver-haired and slower, but still hers, still home. Everything she'd say. "I found everything." Outside the cabin, crocuses bloomed every spring, purple and gold against the last of the snow. First flowers of the new season, promise of warm days to come. And inside, the Thornton family gathered as they always did. Emmett and his wife, Rosie and her husband, Hope with her own growing brood. Generations built on the foundation Clara and Caleb had laid together. Love, courage, persistence. The truest inheritance of all. Clara Ruth Bennett had arrived in rags on Christmas Eve. But she left a legacy of gold. Some treasures can't be measured in money or possessions. Some treasures are counted in children's laughter, in decades of partnership, in the quiet moments when 2 people look at each other and know without words that they chose right. Clara chose right. And in choosing, she became the richest woman in all of Montana Territory. Not despite her rags. Because of them. Because poverty had taught her gratitude. Loss had taught her love. Hardship had taught her hope. And hope in the end was worth more than all the gold in the world. The cabin stood for generations. The crocuses bloomed every spring. And the story of the mail-order bride who came in rags and found forever passed from parent to child, from grandparent to grandchild, from history into legend. A woman's worth is not measured by what she has the story taught, but by what she gives. Not by where she comes from, but by where she chooses to stand. Not by the clothes on her back, but by the love in her heart. Clara Thornton had all the love in the world, and that made her the wealthiest woman who ever lived.